Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Jake Salvi.
And I'm Chris Hicks. Welcome to the Rundown. Let's kick off with some college hoops. The Siena men's basketball team took a trip down to Atlantic City last week to play in the MAC Conference Tournament. The Saints held a 9 seed and faced off against the 8 seed Rider.
And great performances from Justice Schultz, Gavin Doty, and Brendan Coyle made this game a classic with over 20 lead changes throughout. Unfortunately, a game-winning layup from Rider's Tariq Ingram would allow Rider to come out victorious and end the season for Siena. A great season for the Saints and first-year head coach Jerry McNamara, who helped the team improve by 10 wins from last year. And the women's basketball team also went down to Atlantic City for the MAC Conference Tournament. The Saints held a 3 seed and would face off against 6 seed Merrimack in the quarterfinals.
Star-studded performances from Anijah Jackson with 26 points and Teresa Sapala with 22 points. Just weren't enough to push the Saints to the next round as Merrimack upset Siena 79-72. A great season from the Saints under first-year head coach Terry Prim, who led Siena to another 3 seed in the conference, as well as multiple all-conference selections. Now let's move on to the national scale of college hoops. As you can see on your screen, the March Madness bracket is set. Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida round out the 1 seeds, while UNC makes a shocking appearance in the tournament after being 1-12 in Quad 1 games. First 4 action continues tonight with Mount St. Mary taking on American and Xavier facing off against Texas. Now, Jake, as we anticipate the start of the most electric tournament in collegiate sports, let's hear your predictions for this year's national champs.
And this is definitely a hard one. I mean, March Madness is always as unpredictable as it gets. And I know you brought up UNC as a shocking appearance, but I like them to make the most of it and have a nice run, maybe to the Elite 8. But at the end of the day, I really think you can't dispute Cooper Flag and Duke's dominance. But I'm going to have them losing a heartbreaker in the finals to the Florida Gators, giving them their first March Madness win since 2007. Chris, what are you thinking?
Although I am a big UConn guy, I don't think they're going to take the three-peat this year. I'm going to have Auburn and Duke in the final, with Auburn taking home the Natty. And that's going to do it for us today here at the desk.
And we'll send it over to Nicolette Cash, who sits down with former Siena College and current Maine basketball player Killian Gribben.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with former Siena men's basketball player and current Maine men's basketball player Killian Gribben. So, Killian, tell me, how was last year's season different from this year's season?
Well, I feel like last year's experience at Siena, team atmosphere was definitely a lot different. I feel like at Siena there's like a high expectation to win, and we had a lot of like inexperience last year with a lot of underclassmen. And from my experience at Maine, like there's like no history of Maine basketball like winning like kind of like whatsoever. So we were just kind of in it to play, and we had a lot of guys just wanted to do something like see how far we can go basically this season.
How was your transition from the MAC to America East?
I'd say it was pretty easy because I feel like the level of basketball is very similar. Obviously, the American East, I think, is a little bit more competitive. Like, it's harder to get in like the top 2 teams because it's always like the Vermont. You have like UMass Lowell always competed for the title. But the level of basketball is always like pretty similar. Obviously at Siena we play Albany every year and they're in our conference, and we split with them this year at Maine. So I felt like this transition was very easy for me.
This year, did you feel like you had a leg up on Albany because you've played them the past 2 years at Siena?
Yeah, I kind of knew like what their play style was. They also brought in like a couple new guys, and they had some more guys leave, but we had a great like scout report on them at home at Maine. We beat them by like 20, but when we came down to Albany, then it was kind of the other way around. They kind of got us the upper hand by like 10 points. So yeah.
What, going into next year's season, how would you take playing Albany again?
Albany, I love to turn the ball over, like trying to force as many turnovers as possible. So definitely we're gonna try and like learn to take care of the ball and learn to take the right shots and try and force them to turn the ball over rather than us turning the ball over more.
Okay. Since you guys made it so far in the NCAA, like almost to the NCAA tournament, what is your prep gonna be like?
Well, for next year, this year or when we come into the season, like we just wanted to prove like the doubters wrong, like say like, oh, Maine basketball, we're gonna take it like somewhere it's never been before. And we made like top 3, which I think it's the highest seed in like 20 years. And we got a 21 season, which is the first time in 20 years as well. So coming into the next year, we're gonna have higher expectations, especially from the coaches. Like like we're looking to win this thing. We're looking to win the regular season, and we made the championship final. We're looking to win that next year.
How did it feel to be in the championship game?
The nerves were getting to me at the start because the way the American East works is like the higher seed gets the home draw. So we were playing at Bryan through the number 1 seed, and the crowd was just so loud. The atmosphere was like something I've never seen before. So I feel like that home advantage definitely played a huge role for them. They beat us by 20, and that's like, we didn't play our best game, but the crowd definitely gives them like 10 extra points. So if we get a higher seed next year, then I feel like we can easily win it.
How does it feel to make history at Maine basketball?
It feels like, well, we haven't made history yet. The goal is to make the NCAA tournament because Maine's never done that. But it would mean like the world, like not even, because you're not even representing like just a college, you're kind of representing a whole state because Maine is the only, or UMaine is the only D1 basketball team in the state. So we're not only doing it for the team and the university, we're doing it for the whole people of Maine.
Being a senior next year, are you looking to step up into a captain role?
Well, this year we had like 2 great leaderships, like leaders with Kellen Tynes, who was Defensive Player of the Year 3 times in a row, and Jaden Clayton, who is hopefully returning next year because he's a great point guard. I felt like I was trying to like lead somewhat of a way, but I was still also trying to learn the system. Next year, I feel like I know the system. Like I obviously learn the system really well, and I know like what's expected of my role and what's expected of other players. So I feel like that I can step up and be like a leader, even if it's not like a captain role, but I can definitely be a bigger leader on the team.
What are your expectations for next year's season?
Well, for the team is to make the tournament. That's obvious. But it's always one game at a time. That's what our coach says. Like the next game is the most important game. And even if it's a non-conference schedule, we just take one game at a time, and we're going to look to win every game and try and get a 21 season again and make the tournament.
Well, congratulations for coming second place in your conference, and thank you for coming to do this interview today. Maggie and the boys, back to you guys in the studio.
Welcome back. We're glad you could be with us. To my left, I have Stephen Jones, and to my right, I have Joe Lemery. And I'm Maggie Miller. Spring sports are starting to heat up and some friendly competitions as well. With the March Madness games starting yesterday, I think we should start with that. And I know you boys love your college basketball, but first I want to ask what playoff games like this mean to you. Steve, do you want to start?
I tell you what, guys, this is one of the best times of year, right? For March Madness, last night we had our small set of games. Now, one again tonight, and then the best 24 hours in college basketball start. And right away, you talk about one heck of a game to start things off with. Creighton and Louisville, 2 runners-up, and 2 teams who could have arguably won rings, respectively, in the ACC and Big East. This is the best time of year, and these games mean more than just the NIL and the coaching rotation, all that nowadays. These games mean something to every single player, a part of this 68, now soon-to-be 64-team field in this beautiful, beautiful tournament.
Yeah, I mean, March Madness is the time of year, right? Everyone gets so excited for these games, high stakes, win or go home. You know, I think this tournament this year is going to have a lot of upsets. I and Kansas and Arkansas, 2 Hall of Fame head coaches, Bill Self, John Calipari. It's going to be really exciting. I'm curious to see who you think is going to do well.
Before we get into that, though, who does the winner get, possibly, in the 2-15 game?
Texas Tech?
I was thinking Coach Pitino, but...
No?
I think it might be Coach Pitino.
I mean, if they beat Coach Pitino.
Yeah, fair enough. But in that game, you know, it's a toss-up, right? I have Arkansas only because I think John Calipari is due for a big-time March win. But then you look on the other side of the table, and it's Mr. Bill Self, or Coach Bill Self. So you know what? It's going to be a toss-up. Great 7-10 game overall.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned St. John's. That's going to be a tough one for either Arkansas or Kansas if they're going to be able to play. Now, if there's any teams that got a shot to do it, it is them. And then they can go on to possibly play Texas Tech, who I think is going to move on to that Sweet 16. But really, this first round, I'm really looking for the teams that are the favorites to really just show up and prove that they're going to be good. Look, obviously, we're looking at a team like Duke. They're going to go far if they have a healthy Cooper Flag. We know he's coming off the ankle injury. I still expect a team like UConn, who's the 8th seed right now, to make a run probably into the Elite Eight. I know they have 10 losses on the season, and I understand that, but Dan Hurley is still one of the best coaches in college at the moment. I firmly believe it. And they're really dangerous if they're going to shoot the ball well. They shoot the ball well. They play their style. They're one of the best teams in the league, and they can't be beaten. Its problem is consistency with them.
You touched on UConn. I would love to see the way Dan Hurley, God forbid, Florida, everything goes correct. Florida gets the second round. UConn gets past Porter Moser in Oklahoma. I would love to see the way Dan Hurley attacks Walter Clayton Jr. in that potent Florida offense. That would be one of the best matchups in the tournament, and just in the second round, too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think the SEC in this tournament is going to be very interesting. I think with Auburn, obviously the number 1 seed in the tournament, I have big concerns. Janai Broom, sensational player. Obviously incredible. We understand what he's capable of. Bruce Pearl, consistent as they come head coach in the SEC and the entire NCAA. I don't see Auburn beating a team like Duke or St. John's or even Florida. I
agree.
Don't think, and you look at their season this year, 5 losses, 5 of them coming all to teams in the top 25. So obviously they played some good competition. They only lost to the top 25 teams. Great. But some of those teams are really good, and they're top seeds in this tournament. I just know that Auburn's had a track record in the past of screwing up big-time games, and we've seen it countless times under Bruce Pearl. Again, an amazing coach, but are they going to be able to get over the hump this year? That's the big question. That
South region is not the strongest region in this bracket overall. I think there are regions like the East and the West. I personally think the West is the strongest out of every portion of the bracket. But for Auburn to make a run, I think they'll have some tough tests. Creighton, Michigan State. But I think they will get past those teams to the Final Four, where they will be eventually stopped by Coach Rick Pitino and St. John's.
Yeah, and you segued me into this. St. John's, for me, I'm just going to say it, they're my pick to win it all this year. I think St. John's 30-4 record and 18-2 conference record in the Big East. Rick Pitino, I mean, this man, the controversy he's gone through Louisville and then works his way back to Iona, now finds a home here at St. John's. I'm just blown away by how well he's coaching this team. R.J. Lewis Jr. is a star, 18 points per game. He is sensational. And I really just think if they keep playing their style of ball, they're dominating teams. They can easily beat a UConn. They can easily beat a Creighton. They beat the teams in the Big East with no problem if they play their style of basketball. And I think Pitino is the perfect coach for them to make that happen.
So if you haven't already seen yet on our Rundown Instagram page, we asked everyone in the studio to build a March Madness bracket. But for right now, we're going to go over the NCAA brackets. So let's go from the South to the Midwest. Joe, start us off.
Yeah, I mean, in the South, I think Auburn's going to take their first round matchup. It's a pretty easy one for them going up against a 16 seed. We've seen 16s make upsets, but just don't see it happening this time. Louisville Creighton, as you mentioned, is going to be a really exciting matchup, one of the best ones in this South region. I think Michigan, UC San Diego could really be a toss-up there too. We know 5-12 is notorious for upsets. I think Michigan will pull away with that one. Texas A&M, I think, is going to have a tough challenge with Yale. Those Harvard-type schools, Ivy League schools, they always find a way to get in the mix there and put up a fight. I think Ole Miss will have theirs. Iowa State's got theirs. Marquette, New Mexico, really love that matchup. I think New Mexico is going to pull away in that one. And then I think Bryant is a really good America East team, but they have no match for Michigan State.
I agree. I think arguably one of the other premier matchups of the first round is that Marquette-New Mexico game, right? Because you have Rick Pitino's son, Richard Pitino, and you got Shaka Smart, right? I think these are two guys who have two of the most underrated college basketball minds for coaches in Division I, and I think this will be easily one of the more impressive games and just one of the more, sit down, prime time, do not change the channel type games.
Definitely. And I think in this region in the South, it's so up for grabs who can make it and be that regional champion. I probably would lean towards Michigan State. I think Tom Izzo is really hungry. I think that team, the way they went out in the Big Ten tournament, they're going to be looking for vengeance.
My only concern with them is they squeaked past some of these teams. They squeaked past Maryland on a game-winning half-court shot, right? They got past Oregon. They didn't dominate Oregon. They got past Oregon in the Big Ten tournament. So I definitely have some concerns. Like, hey, what if you get Marquette? And what if Marquette gets you in a point where it's like, hang on a minute, everybody hold on tight. Shaka Smart might get Tom Izzo.
So who do you pick then from the South?
I do still have Michigan State in that matchup versus Marquette, but I have Auburn coming out of my southern region in that department.
With NBA playoffs starting April 1st, there has been talks around the league of who should take home the regular season award for MVP. Right now, Jokic and SGA are top contenders. Now, Steve, who do you think deserves MVP more?
I think it's SGA, by all means. Shea has played out of his mind this year. I think the funny part about his season this year is he is shooting 37% from downtown. His career best is 42% from the 2021 season, right? But this year he's averaging 33 a game. He's only averaging 2.5 turnovers a game. That's flat out impressive for a point guard. And I also think that really fuels and drives this Oklahoma City Thunder offense.
Look, SGA leads the league in scoring. Understand that completely. And I think he's easily got to be in that MVP conversation. But I can't sit here and say that Nikola Jokic doesn't deserve a fourth MVP. I mean, this dude is just unbelievable. I mean, 29 points a game, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. Like, come on. I mean, just the dude is otherworldly. And I think Jamal Murray is coming alive at the right time for them. They look like one of the most dangerous teams in the West. I think the Lakers are picking it up. I think there's teams that are going to give OKC a run for their money. I think as well as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has played, that team is still very young. I have question marks around Chet Holmgren. What's going to happen with them come postseason time? Maybe they'll make it past into the second round. Are they a conference championship team? We've yet to see that. We know that the Denver Nuggets are a championship team. We've seen it with Jokic and Murray in the past. Most of their core guys are still there. Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon. They have the team, Russell Westbrook. So I trust Denver and I trust Nikola Jokic, and I think that when it leads up to the playoffs, these last portion of the season, he's going to show up big, and he might make that final MVP push at the end.
I agree with you about the concern over OKC's inexperience and youth. By all means, they don't have the veteran and seasoned presence of a team like the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, where they know what it's like to get past the first round of the playoffs after the Celtics get a ring. However, I do think that when it comes time for the MVP award to be handed out, I do think that every voter needs to sit down and really consider, okay, are we going to go with Nikola Jokic, who you're right, he's been outstanding, or are we going to go with a breath of fresh air at the point guard position, SGA, who's just been unstoppable, and really, I don't think without SGA, this OKC team can get to where they are. Like, don't get me wrong, I think they're a top 3 team, just SGA has fueled them and has created a beast within Oklahoma City that we haven't seen in almost 10 years.
And I think the problem, and I'm not someone who hates his style of play. I really enjoy SGA's play, but I think for the NBA, for the voters of this award, he's going to have issues because he is not that flashy player. I think this has been his most flashy season. I think he's really shown us his bag more than he's ever before. But Jokic is just the way he does it is just people are in awe. I think SGA kind of gives off those old school Kawhi Leonard vibes. It's really like not entertaining all the time, and it's not super eye-popping or exciting, but the dude is getting it done. And this is a guy who I don't think anybody out of college really expected him to be that true number one option on a championship team, and I think he's blown those expectations out of proportion. But again, I'm not going to compare SGA to Embiid, but we saw Joel Embiid wins that MVP that year. I still think it should have been Nikola Jokic. Look, the point numbers were down. Everything up statistically was there. So it's a toss-up. I would not be upset if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wins MVP, but I really think we got to consider how great and just how special the greatness of Nikola Jokic is. We're only going to see this once in our lifetime. Are we really just going to stop voting for an MVP because of bias and not wanting to have the same MVP over and over again?
All right. So let's move on from basketball to another sport I know you two can talk about for hours. The NFL postseason has been off to a crazy start. Cooper Rush just signed with the Ravens. Kyle Juszczyk was just dropped from the Niners, just to be brought back in under 24 hours. And the names Rodgers and Wilson are on people's minds. Now, Joe, speaking of Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, where do you think they'll end up?
Yeah, so I think those are the two quarterbacks right now, obviously, that the league is eyeing to see. I don't know if they're necessarily the best free agents in the world, but I think they're two quality quarterbacks that could still be a little serviceable to teams. Starting with Russell Wilson, I think he stays with Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson's a guy who his former teammate just signed in DK Metcalf, so now he's got Metcalf and George Pickens on the outside for both of them. Two great weapons that he can use. The run game is a little suspect right now. Lost Najee Harris. How is Jalen Warren going to be able to do with that? They just got Kenneth Gainwell, though, so we'll see what happens. That line still needs improvement, in my opinion, but the defense is still legit, and the biggest question, can they protect Russell Wilson and establish a consistent run game? That's the biggest question mark for me, because I still think Russell Wilson can sling it. He's got one of the best moon balls in the NFL, and really, the options for Russell Wilson and for Aaron Rodgers, as I'll say in a minute, are limited, and I think for Mr. Unlimited, he's got to stay in Pittsburgh if he wants to have the best shot at winning.
Over the past, I would say, couple of weeks, we've seen the same narratives of, okay, Russell Wilson has a meeting with Pittsburgh. Okay, now he's flying to Cleveland. Now he's flying to New York, right? With these two, they're in a very unique position, as you mentioned. I think it's going to be a market swap, right? I know Aaron Rodgers came from the Jets and Russ the Steelers. However, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go back to that really, that cozy environment he likes of not a big city like New York City, right? For the love of God, he came from Milwaukee, right? From Green Bay. I think he's going to go to Pittsburgh. That's more of his style, and I think he'll gel with the fans there better. He'll gel with the play style there better, and just the city and atmosphere overall better. Now, I know we love the attention in New York. We all know that, right? Now, some of that was fueled by the friends and relationships he's made over the several years in sports media. But also, I think it's time for the Giants to step up to the plate and say, you know what, Russell, how much? We want you to develop our our wide receivers. We want you to be a veteran presence for them. Also, that will say to the Giants, oh, we have Russell Wilson. We need to really, really fix up our O-line and take good care of him. Because if you don't, the Giants are just going to go back to, square one, and that offensive line will get hurt, and so will Russ, and we will see his career diminish.
See, I completely disagree. I think we have a big swap here. I think Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants and it makes perfect sense to me. If he doesn't go to the Giants, he should retire. At this point, it's last season was really out of hand and uncharacteristic of Aaron Rodgers. But I know he won't retire. He don't want to go out like that. I think the Giants are truly, and obviously the Steelers are in the mix, but I think the Giants are truly his only option to go to at this point. We could have the Brett Favre story all over again if he goes to Minnesota, but that would be, I think Kevin O'Connell is a lot smarter than that, and he's going to stick with J.J. McCarthy. But the Giants, he's already in New York, so he don't really have to go anywhere. I think that makes perfect sense for him. The market fits his vibe really well. I understand that, he's a Green Bay guy for most of his career, and New York, very different. But I think the vibe, media-wise, really fits him, and I think he's got the aura, so to say, exactly, to kind of just say whatever he wants. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. The amount of things he said that we've questioned is just through the charts. But let's be honest. I don't think the Giants can get much worse, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers would be much worse than the situation they were in this year. Look, he's old. We all recognize Aaron Rodgers is old. Well, I don't know how many more years he's got. Like I said, I think he should retire. But the Giants coaching staff, I like to believe, is a lot better than the Jets coaching staff as of right now. And I think if they're going to do something, Aaron Rodgers is going to be their best bet.
I agree. I think Rodgers in that department still would thrive in Pittsburgh, right? That offensive line is kind of his style of play too. And Russell Wilson, maybe you don't need him for more than 3 years. Maybe you get him for a year or two. But also, I think this, holds a special place in the hearts of also Tennessee Titans fans and Cleveland Browns fans. Why? Because they have the first two picks. Underneath them are the Giants. Tennessee wants defense and wants to hang on to Will Levis. Cleveland is thinking, okay, well, do we go with Travis Hunter? Do we go with Shedeur Sanders? Do we keep Deshaun Watson? Or do we go with Russ? They're in a very weird position, but I think there are many different factors that'll add up. But I think it'll be Russ in the Big Apple and Aaron in Pittsburgh.
All I got to add to that is the Titans need to move on from Will Levis.
Yes, they do.
Immediately.
Yes, they do, my friend.
All right.
So, opening day for the MLB is just 8 days away. But before we get into our predictions for each division, I think it's important to talk about spring training and the biggest revelations that have come from it. Now, Steve, do you want to start off with your Red Sox?
Yeah, it's time for a litany about the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, here
everybody. We go. Overall, though, I think the big talk out of camp, this year has been the development of the big three. I personally don't think Detroit is the greatest farm system, as all the voters have said. I don't really see anything special. I understand they have Jackson Jobe, and he's going to be fantastic. It is a breath of fresh air Detroit needed, but you can't. It's hard to beat the big three for the Boston Red Sox right now, right? They trade away Kyle Teal for Garrett Crochet. Oh, there goes the big three. Wait a minute. Hang on. Here comes Christian Campbell. It's time for him to shine, right? Christian Campbell, Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony. They've been unbelievable. They've been fantastic, too. Alex Bregman's been great. And shout out Trace Thompson, by the way, too. Guy in a minor league deal. Just trying to get some reps in. He's been fantastic, too.
Yeah, I think evaluating this MLB season, I really think the AL is significantly weaker than the NL this year.
I do agree with that.
And it's mind-boggling to me. I think the Yankees are still going to be one of the top teams in the AL. I think they'll come out of the AL East. I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were last season, especially not having Juan Soto. I think Judge is still one of the best players in the game. So without question, they got to be up there. I really like Cleveland. I think Cleveland is a team that is really young. They're consistent. They find ways to make the postseason. They're a team that I think is going to be sneaky and can get up there. But honestly, I'm looking at the NL. I think the top two teams in the entire MLB are going to be the Dodgers and the Mets. I think the Mets this year, having Juan Soto to pair with those stars in New York, is just going to be so special. And if I'm being completely honest, I do not see any team beating the Dodgers this year at all. Like, this team has become such a dynasty, a legit dynasty. Like, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts. Like, the list, you could go on. You can name 10 players plus deep on their team. Like, it is loaded. And Dave Roberts, incredible GM for their team. I mean, so much positive things to say. It's like when you're dating and you have the red flags and the green flags. There's no red flags with that team.
No.
There is no flaws. I think the Dodgers are just in a perfect position where their team is assembled to beat all those top teams in the NL, and then once they do that, they're going to smoke the teams in the World Series.
My only concern with the Los Angeles Dodgers is their health. Right now, Mookie Betts isn't healthy. He did not play in the Tokyo series at all, so we'll have to see. But outside of that, I don't see any flaws. Also, pitching health, we'll have to see too.
Yeah, I will say, if health is the concern at the end of the day for the Dodgers, then the Mets got it. I think the Mets have the best chance behind the Dodgers to win the World Series. The AL is going to be wide open. Like, I don't think the Yankees have an easy way back. And
I don't either.
I really am curious to see what it's going to look like, because I think the AL playoffs could look completely different next year.
All right, so we're going to move on to the different divisions. You ready? So let's begin with the American League. All right, so in the AL East, who do you think is going to be the top dog?
You know what? I don't fully Tampa Bay write them out. Toronto has their own issues where they can't pay their star players, and they want to sign more guys too and bring in boatloads of money with different guys. The Yankees' health concerns me.
Don't get me started on it.
The Yankees' health concerns me. The Orioles are going to do the same thing. Their health concerns me too. But I think at the end of the day, if health is the name of the game, the Boston Red Sox will be American League East division winners.
In your dreams. All right. Joe, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think, AL East is really going to be down to Red Sox and Yankees. I think if health is going to be the ultimate determinator here, it'll be the Red Sox. But I think if the Yankees stay healthy, they're obviously the better team.
All right. Let's go on to the Central. Who do you guys got?
Cleveland. Without a doubt.
Cleveland, no question.
All right, yeah, me too. All right, moving on to the West. All right, take it away, Joe.
I like to say Texas. I think the Rangers, I think they're due. They, for their standards, had a disappointing year last year. I think they're due to have a big bounce back, and that team is just got potential all over it.
You're paying Marcus Semien and Corey Seager boatloads amount of money. You just need a healthy rotation. DeGrom is trying to take Miles Power off his arm so it's less taxing. Give me the Rangers.
All right. I like the Rangers too. I like Josh Smith. Shout out to Josh Smith. All right, let's move on to the NL. All right, NL East. I mean, I think this one's a unanimous one.
Mets. No question.
All right, perfect. Now, want to head to the Central?
The Brewers, blown away by this pick, but I'm going the Pirates. I think Paul Skeens is going to have an MVP-type pitching year, and I don't know. I feel like the energy is changing down there in Pittsburgh. I'm excited.
All right, and then West, I'm going Dodgers. And I
Enough
know
said.
your answers.
Dodgers.
Dodgers.
All right, so that's going to do it on the rundown. A big thank you to these two with me at the desk, and Jake Salvi, Chris Hicks, Nicolette Cash, and everyone behind the scenes, and all of you watching at home. I'm Maggie Miller. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everyone.